rests bigger than Pamela, yet he's Anderson. Baywatch John Strongman. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Slam and Stan, number 27. I am Vandal Drummond, joined as always by Alfredo Esparza. How are you doing tonight, Fredo?
Did you write that one, or is that somebody else?
I wrote that one, yes.
Oh.
Yeah, later in the program, I'm going to have a lengthier poem about John Strongman written by our good friend Dave Musgrave. It's a wonderful work of art. That'll be coming up later in the show.
Cool. I was going to ask you if you've been following any of the Lucha news lately. There's been a lot of...
Believe it or not, I have been totally off the Lucha zone all week long. Not by choice, just been busy.
Well, it's been a pretty dark week for Lucha with all the crime going on in Mexico. And actually here in L.A., you remember that guy Chippy Sanchez?
Who's that?
Chippy Sanchez?
Yes.
Remember him? He got arrested.
I remember the name.
He got arrested.
Oh, my God, I'm almost afraid to ask. I heard there was a wrestler arrested for murder. Is that him?
No, that was that's somebody from Monterrey. We'll get into that later.
Oh, dear. But, so it is indeed a dark week for Lucha.
No, he actually, it wasn't, well, it actually was pretty bad, considering he was, I guess he was stalking some 12-year-old girl on MySpace.
Oh, that's
allegedly. Before we keep on.
Yeah, before we cast judgment, we should say allegedly.
Allegedly.
Oh, disturbing.
Yeah, so that's already we're already off to a bad start.
Oh dear. And the wrestler in Monterrey, what's the story behind that?
Well, I was reading what Meltzer wrote, and I think he has it wrong.
Really?
Because according to what he wrote, because I read the story, that's not exactly what happened. I think the guy he murdered, the wrestler that's being accused of murders, called Black Diamond, Mexico, and he murdered a guy who's been a long-time fan in that area for the longest time. And what Meltzer wrote was that the guy, that Black Diamond, I don't know if the guy hit on Black Diamond's girlfriend, but that's not the way the story was written. The story is that the story that was written in Monterrey was that Black Diamond was that guy's lover for the last 10 years.
Oh, okay. So two conflicting stories.
Yeah, so it's a little more. There's a little more to it, I think.
We'll no doubt be hearing more on that in the next week or so.
I don't know who has the correct story, considering it's something I just read right away, and I was like, man, because I seen that guy.
Yeah, we'll probably have light further shed on it.
Yeah.
Well, two dark stories in Lucha. Can we complete the trilogy with
another bad story, some murder or?
Well, I was hoping a really wonderful story, like further news about the Mistico-Volador feud. I was hoping something wonderful like that.
That's actually the big story. The big news with them is that apparently Dos Leyendas, they actually have 3 possible main event matches going on that they could pick from one of 3.
Really?
They could go with Mistico versus Volador in a mask match.
Yes.
Or a title match or whatever. They'll probably back out towards the end. Because they each challenged each other to a mask match.
Did they really? So early?
Yeah, but that's the way. You know how it is nowadays in wrestling. You challenge and somebody backs out towards the end, so they never do.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, and then they basically had another backup in there were La Sombra and Felino. You know how they've been feuding?
Yeah.
They might actually be the main event also for the match.
That would be strong. I mean, that would be pretty hip. I would hate to see Felino lose his mask. I mean, I know everybody and their brother is aware of Bobby Casas.
Yeah.
But still, that is one of the coolest personas in Lucha.
See, I think that one would be the one I would go with first.
That would be a cool match.
But I don't think they're going to go that early with it. I think they're going to go with the third option, Rey Bucanero versus Shocker.
Mm-hmm.
Or Shocker versus Ultimo Guerrero, one of those two. I think it's Ultimo Guerrero versus Shocker.
And Shocker is still on the reliable list these days, it sounds like.
He'll no-show at some point. He'll probably no-show as we're talking about this.
That's right. Yeah, we'd have to say it and kind of put a spell on it and look, he won't show up to his next couple of bookings.
That's probably why I don't know if that's going to end up. I think they might actually go with Ultimo Bureau versus Shocker. I don't know.
That would be cool. That would be very cool. Shocker's one of those guys I would love to see him keep his act together just because I would love to see him around. I really dig Shocker.
Yeah.
I almost said Stalker.
You dig Stalker and Shocker.
Yeah, I do. Now there's a possible tag team. Shocker Ichikawa.
Yeah, and the other guy who showed up in Mexico now is the New Japan guy, Tachi.
Yes.
Taichi or whatever his name is. He's now in Mexico. And he's got even cooler hair now in Mexico than he did in Japan.
Oh, I dig it.
He let it grow a little longer, so.
Well, that'll be my vow for this next week is to catch up on CMLL. I am really digging CML these days.
Yeah, they had a really good I think 2 weeks ago they had a good trios match with Strongman, Sombra, and I can't remember who the other guy was, but it was a really good. I think it might have been Porky. They had a good match, and then the following week they had this really crappy match with Strongman.
It went yin to yang really quickly in rapid succession.
Well, I think they changed their. I can't remember the exact who was in the matches or anything, but it was just one of those weird things where 1 week they had a really good match, and all of a sudden they just had a really crappy match. But that's what you get when you get Strongman or.
This is true. This is true. John Strongman, I will write haiku about him. I will praise him, but I'm not going to rave about his work rate just yet.
He needs the right opponent.
Yeah, this is true. He's one guy. He's the type of guy I would love to see in there with Negro Casas because last week I was. That's who they were fighting in the first match that I saw, the trios from 2 weeks ago. It was the La Peste Negra versus Strongman, Sombra, and Porky, I think. Oh, sweet.
So that was a good match because they knew they were bumping, and you had Negro Casas making these weird facial expressions like, oh my God, this guy's, oh, he's huge or whatever. I can't take this guy. Or he's just running around cowardly. And then, in fact,
the reason I brought that up was exactly what you just pointed out with Casas. The very first time I ever saw Negro Casas was in 1985 at the Olympic Auditorium. It was in a six-man, and Santo was on the Technoco team along with Tinieblas. And, of course, Casas and Hijo de Santo were doing their usual awesome spots. But then Casas gets in the ring with Tinieblas, and I said this on the Figure 4 show last week, and I mean it. I always dug Tinieblas, but God, is he a terrible worker.
Yeah.
And Casas did those same kind of spots with Tinieblas where, oh my God, I'm wrestling a giant. And he is the one person I saw who actually made Tinieblas look really good in the ring. And I'll never forget that night, just seeing Casas and saying, oh my God, I'm seeing somebody who's on the top tier of working.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they did with Strongman, and plus they had Sombra in there to take all the bumps and everything. But,
I guess since Strongman is the subject at the moment, I think I'm going to jump right into Dave Musgrave's poem, which he sent. This is totally, totally cool. This is art. Strongman, in Japan, flexing like no other can, a golden and sculpted Adonis, will soon be unleashed upon us, showing the rising sun the way to do lucha with no tope, creating frenzy and a fuss as he pulls the gaijin bus. His career will ascend up and up when he wins the New Japan Cup. The biggest, strongest, greatest man will have conquered New Japan. Nakamura is sure to lose. The Yakuza will tremble in their shoes at the visage of John Anderson, flexing biceps before the rising sun. His lats will bulge to our delight. His quads will create such a sight that puro boys will run and flee, while their girlfriends giggle in pure glee. Strongman in Japan, flexing like no other can. A golden and sculpted Adonis will soon be unleashed upon us. Is that totally bitchin' or what?
That's a great poem.
Isn't that? That is awesome.
Like that's actually that he should put, they should have that on the Observer, you know.
I agree. This was I especially love the line of doing lucha with no tope.
Yeah. Well, he did
totally
a plancha.
Cool.
He did a plancha. Strongman did a plancha.
Did he?
Yeah.
Did he?
If you go to the website Fuego del Ring or Fuego del Ring or something like that, they have a
Fuego del Ring. I'm going to bookmark it right now so I can have my John Strongman now with Mike Haiku Musgraves poem, and now we have to have people do some just like funky neon art of John Strongman. We can start our own factory like Andy Warhol did. This would be totally bitchin'.
Have the unofficial Strongman fan club or something.
That's right, exactly. This would be too cool.
He does a tope. He does a plancha, not a tope, because I don't think he can do that. But. Yeah,
that would be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
I'd be impressed, but I think it would be a bit of a stretch.
I'd be worried about what muscle he'd pull in. You know, like whenever I see a muscular guy climb the top rope and everything, it's like, holy shit, this guy's gonna die. I
keep thinking back on those videos of, was it Gronda whose leg just broke, right?
Yeah, that's nasty.
Just coming off the turnbuckle. That still freaks me out, as did the Sid Vicious break.
There's a video. I got a DVD. Somebody released it in Mexico that it's just injuries. Just like all these injuries, like Charlie Manson falling flat on the floor. Gronda breaking his leg and everything. It's like, it's really, I've never seen it, but I mean, it's really disgusting.
Yeah, I don't think I could watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it that one time and that was it. I was like, okay, that's enough.
You know, it is so weird how full circle I've come because, you know, when I started watching wrestling, a lot of the wrestling I'd see on TV in the early 70s, you know, somebody would do a top wrist lock, the heel would pull the hair, you know, reverse the wrist lock, do a lot of theatrics. Then later when I started discovering the folks like Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy Smith, you know, I wanted nothing less than balls-out wrestling. And now when you think of this just cavalcade of injuries, you know, and people, wrestlers winding up in a bad way by their 40s, it makes me just long for the days of pulling the hair, working the headlock, you know, being a heel, being a face.
Yeah.
Short matches, I guess that's why I'm kind of like not looking at the 5-star matches. I keep seeing 5-star matches, and I keep thinking, damn, how are these poor cats going to be feeling when they're 53 or so?
You know, the other story about Lucha is Ring of Honor bringing in all the luchadors. Did you hear about the guys going to Charlotte?
No, I did not.
You know how Jim Cornette was on Figure 4 Daily talking about how they were going to bring in all these, how Ring of Honor is all the young and talented wrestlers?
Yes, I did. I remember him bringing up Blue Demon Jr. and somebody else.
Well, they're bringing in all the Mexicans, all the luchadors, and they're Blue Demon Jr., Cassandro, Super Parka, and Solar. I think all those guys are over 40 at least.
I believe so. I think Cassandro's probably the youngest of them.
Yeah, you know, and I can understand Cassandro's a good worker, so...
Yeah, he's probably the best... Well, he and Solar are probably the best worker of them.
Yeah, but I mean, it's so funny to like see like a promotion that's claiming to be young and they're bringing in all the really old luchadors.
Yeah, that is almost like a tradition in wrestling. I mean, you know, TNA, the new, you know, this whole new look, and the new look is the aged.
The Nasty Boys.
Yeah, maybe I should work on getting out of my rookie years at age 48 almost, you know?
You're like the new young guy in AAA.
Yeah, exactly. I'm turning 48 in a few weeks. Maybe I should go for Rookie of the Year or something, you know?
The new member of the Foreign Legion, the young up-and-coming Kurt Brown.
That's right,
Vandal Drummond.
The senior Foreign Legion, you know?
No, it's not. You won't be senior. You'll be the young up-and-coming.
Yeah, that's true. What am I talking about? I'm young. I'm young again. See, I've got the wrong idea. For somebody like me, pro wrestling is the fountain of youth.
You know, the other thing I have to tell you about Lucha that you have to get, like if you can find it on YouTube, you gotta look up Gringo Loco.
Really?
There's a guy in, I think he's from Chicago. Or at least that's where he first popped up. He's really good.
Okay. Now, Gringo Loco, is he wrestling Lucha style, or is it just kind of a Lucha gimmick?
I think he's Hispanic, though.
Oh, very cool.
He speaks perfect Spanish, so he doesn't have like a big old accent like a white boy. So
Okay, I will have to check this out.
He's just light-skinned. I think he's just light-skinned or whatever, you know.
So I think this is good. This is making me feel good on a Thursday night. We may have opened with 2 dismal Lucha Libre news stories, but there's a lot to look forward to also.
No, trust me. If you watch Gringo Loco and his new, he's got a new faction. They're called Gringos del Averno. The team is him, Hijo del Diablo, and Avisman. And they're all refusing to speak in Spanish now.
Oh, that's great.
So if you've been around luchadors when they're trying to speak in English, so
yes, it's better. In fact, I mean, probably the classic is Black Orderman and Goliath. You know,
their English is good.
Well, the funny thing is their English was not bad, but it wasn't good either, and they they would claim that they were from New Mexico, but you would never hear them speaking English very much. In fact, when fans would be heckling them and stuff, Goliath would just look at them with this just contemptuous look and just say, "Shut up, Mexican," in the most broken English you ever heard.
So Goliath did actually not speak that much.
Yeah, his English was not good. Gordman's was pretty decent.
Yeah.
But it was funny. They were so not American, but they would still do the gimmick. They claimed to be from New Mexico, and it got great heat. It was awesome.
Yeah, these guys are really good. I mean, Gringo Loco, he kind of reminds me of Art Barr for some reason.
Really?
He's got that similar build because he's small like that. But you kind of get that. You kind of sense that out of him.
And when there's a name like a Gringo Loco, he's probably patterning himself after the classics.
Eddie and Art Barr. We got to get this caller on the line.
We got a caller on the line?
It's Bix, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, see, I told you it was Bix.
The Bixie Demon, how are you, my friend?
Good.
We need to get intro music for Bix.
This would be great. What sort of intro music do we play for him?
I don't know.
We're putting Bix on the spot now.
No, I'll let Kurt pick it out.
Okay, I'll have to look through my playlist before Steve Sims gets a hold of it.
Yeah, see what you think fits me the best.
In fact, with David Bixenspan on the line here.
I know. I just figured it out. Wild and Young.
There you go.
The theme song from NXT.
I don't think I saw the opening. I don't think I saw the theme song. I know. I dread hearing this now.
Yeah, I heard Brian complain about it, and I thought, how bad can it be? And I finally started watching the show, and I'm like, oh my god, that song really is bad.
Bad enough that Steve Sims will put on the playlist he's going to try to inject into my soul.
WWE did make a good musical choice this week, though, that Undertaker Michaels video.
Yeah, that was a good video.
With Devo's cover of Kate Bush running up that hill.
Who's Devo's cover of Kate Bush?
Placebo.
Devo?
Placebo.
Devo, like we...
No, not Devo.
You're talking about the classic group Devo.
No, Placebo, as in
Placebo. Oh, I was hoping Devo was going to do a spin on the Kate Bush tune. That would have been classic.
That would be good. That would be interesting.
Yes. Oh, man. Kate Bush. Now, Kate Bush, if they could get her to guest host, that would be so cool. I hear she's like Jim Cornette. She doesn't like to fly, so it's probably not going to happen, but that would rock. Get Kate Bush versus Sarah Brightman. Okay.
You were going to ask me something, you said.
I was going to ask you something. Yeah, before we get into WWE NXT, I have to ask Bix, did you hear the most recent Carl Stern show?
No.
Because he briefly brought up a wrestler that we were both intrigued with, being the late, great Chris Colt.
Oh.
He, one of his listeners wrote in asking a question about Chris Colt, and sadly, Carl Stern had not seen Chris Colt until the late 1980s when he was doing a gimmick called Chris Von Colt, where he did like a white supremacist gimmick. And I had heard that by the mid-'80s, Chris Colt was in no condition to wrestle, and in the Portland territory would only do mic work. I guess he was a manager for, I think, Ed Moretti and somebody else. But the interesting thing was, according to Carl Stern, he seemed to think that Chris Colt was still among the living.
No.
Yeah, it has been confirmed that, sadly, Chris Colt did pass away in the mid-'90s.
Yeah.
I would love to believe he is still with the living.
Did you email Carl Stern this?
Yeah, I actually wrote him a letter just kind of, asking him, where he got the info from. It sounded like he didn't say exactly where he got the information about Chris Colt being alive and well, but it sounds like he got it from a web page.
Wikipedia.
Actually, you know what? I remember maybe at Kayfabe Memories, someone posted something claiming to be a relative that said he was either alive or died at a different time than people thought or something.
Yeah, what happened? Originally there was rumor going around that he had indeed died in 1996, and they had the Social Security Death Index as proof.
Oh, right.
Right, and I talked to Tom Burke about that, and Burke was saying that doesn't sound right, because he said that Chris Colt, when he worked, if he used, he never had a legitimate Social Security number. I guess if he did use one, it was a false one. And
so was his real name not his real name?
Well, his name was Charles Harris, but
Charles Harris, though.
Yeah, they found a Charles Harris who died in Oregon, which was Colt's home state, in 1996.
And his age. The age is Chris Colt also. Right.
And what they found out when they did the research on the fellow who passed away was, if I remember correctly, I think he was a college professor or a teacher or something.
That doesn't sound like Chris Colt,
yeah.
Although I wish it was.
Exactly. That would make a great reality show, though. Chris Colt as your high school history teacher, or gym teacher, even. That would be even a more fascinating reality show.
Or you could just teach you how to deal with giant spiders.
Yes. For those of you who don't know who Chris Colt was, he was like a 1970s rock and roll version of Dr. Jerry Graham, somebody who had a lot of colorful experiences outside the ring, including working in Tennessee in a cage match where he leapt off the top of a cage, not because it was the finish or the angle, but because he thought he saw giant spiders on top of the cage.
Yeah, I believe they may have been glowing as well.
I love it.
Yes, I think you can figure out what substance he indulged in before the match.
Yeah, I remember Ed Moretti told me that one of the greatest compliments he ever got was from Chris Colt, and Chris Colt said, "Moretti, I admire you because I've spent 20 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to get as fucked up as you are naturally." Oh, that's somebody we should try to get on here, is Ed Moretti, just to tell us some Chris Colt stories. He has some great ones.
I thought you meant Chris Colt.
What's that?
I thought you meant we should get Chris Colt on the set.
That would be something. If we could get a psychic connection, have the first Slammin' Stand seance.
Yeah, we've been planning on doing that.
By the way, do you know the story of how he named himself Chris Colt?
I had heard it was after a gay magazine called Colt.
Yes, that's correct. It was in the Heels book.
That's right, yes. From the Heels book. I forgot about that.
And he did perform in a film.
Yeah, in fact, several. I remember seeing stills.
What?
I saw stills from a film on the internet, which Carl Stern also brought up.
Gee, Kurt, you're just bringing all this stuff out now.
Hey, this is pro wrestling,
This is part of your study, right?
Exactly. I wasn't wearing a trench coat when I was looking, watching it. I was not trying to, do the Stanislavski approach. But no, the photo, the still from one of them of Chris Colt looked like the Chris Colt from the late 1970s in Tennessee. And then there was another one that was probably later in his life where he was like doing like nude wrestling with somebody who I don't think was in the business. And those have actually been peddled on the internet for I think a good 10 years or so, something like that. So anyway, the mystery that is Chris Colt.
I really wish there was a lot more footage of him, especially from like the early 70s, because people who saw him back then like talk about him being as good as like Ray Stevens and Pat Patterson and those guys.
Yes, I've heard like multiple people rave about him. I even remember before I saw much of him in the early 80s meeting wrestlers who were journeymen for a while, and if you brought up Chris Colt, they would just rave about what a good worker he was. And yeah, it's really a shame that more footage of him doesn't survive. I think the footage that both you and I saw was that the only existing match that we know of him teaming with Ron Dupree as the Hells Angels versus J.J. Dillon and Arnold Skaaland.
Yep. Yeah, you were saying?
And that was the classic, the kind of wrestling I miss, the heels pulling the hair of the baby faces behind the referee's back. Straight, good old school wrestling.
Yeah, I just became drawn to Chris Colt ever since the first time I saw him on tape, and then began reading about him, and like kind of that weird affinity that Jim Cornette has for him too.
Yeah,
made him seem interesting, and I don't know. I just love the tape of him I have from I forget if it's from Vancouver or George Cannon's promotion in the Maritimes, where he's the Chris Colt Experience.
Is this where he was doing the Alice Cooper gimmick?
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's a Vancouver. Was it in this TV studio?
Yeah, and they were both. I think it was Vancouver. I'm pretty sure it was Vancouver, but I'm not sure. I always forget. It was one or the
I know
other.
He did hit both those territories. Yeah, he was a really fascinating character. What's interesting is my first experience watching Chris Colt was in Los Angeles at the 1977 Battle Royal show, and they were billing Mike Stallings as coming to the LA territory. Mike Stallings, who was a worker in the South in the late 70s, and for weeks they had been billing him as this all-American boy who has this great collegiate background. Well, as often happened with the Mike LaBelle promotion, Mike Stallings decided not to come to L.A. And instead of just saying Mike Stallings isn't coming, they brought in somebody else to bill as Mike Stallings. And that person was Chris Colt. And I had never seen Colt before, and I had never heard about... I think I'd seen pics of him in the biker gear before. So I didn't recognize this guy coming into the ring, but this guy they had been billing as the All-American boy had, like, shoulder-length hair, beard and a mustache, tattoos, and these bright, multicolored spandex trunks. And I just sat there thinking, what's wrong with this picture? But immediately I thought, oh, this dude is great. He wasn't anything like what they billed, but he took all these, really cool bumps that wrestlers didn't typically take in that day. He loved doing the Ray Stevens, Ric Flair bump in the turnbuckle upside down. And of all people I saw him wrestle, it was against Jimmy Valiant when the Valiant brothers were here. And, well, that was my first taste of Chris Colt, and like you, David, I just got more fascinated with him the more I heard people rave and talk about him. One of those Dr. Jerry Graham-like characters. In fact, it's a shame they're both not around. That would be a great reality show. Just have them go on the road together.
My pet wrestling reality show idea has always been the Dundee family. As far as one you could actually do.
That would be precious.
Because you have Bill Dundee, and you have Jamie, and you have Bobby Eaton, and then you work in Samantha, Donna Shepard, and then you can have Bull Payne be involved as the wacky ex-husband. And
that would be a hit. That would be so cool.
Trying to figure out if I'm forgetting anyone. I just have Wolfie too.
And we got to get Lance Russell in there to play the straight man.
By golly, I tell you.
Okay, well, I know we were starting to talk about WWE next. And how did you both enjoy the show?
I liked it a lot.
I
did too.
liked it too. I liked it too. When I finally saw the whole thing, I liked it. First, I didn't like it.
I really wasn't expecting much. Maybe that was a good thing going into it, but I thought it was a really fresh approach. In fact, having the whole thing being a competition in the Guys Are Tough Enough, I don't even think is necessary to make this show roll. I think just having, veterans mentoring, young guys trying to climb the ladder is just a good story in itself, and I don't think you even have to have a winner emerging. I think you could just have this be a weekly show, and
this is what they should have made ECW from the beginning.
Very good point.
I mean, considering it's actually, because just off the first show, I thought there were two guys who I think are going to end up being really good for WWE long term.
Otunga, I agree.
Otunga or whatever his name is looks like he's going to be a star. What's his name? Otunga. What was his name again?
This is where I am totally embarrassed. I should have taken notes because...
You don't know who that Otunga was, Kurt?
Of course I don't.
You didn't watch the whole show, huh?
I watched it 5 minutes into it.
Yeah, R-Truth guy.
Okay, R-Truth's guy. That's how I know him. R-Truth's guy.
Yeah, Otunga.
And then I liked Christian's guy, too.
I didn't like Christian's guy.
You like the team of Christian Slater?
Yeah, I only like Christian Slater, the name, but I didn't like Heath Slater. So, you know who's got the worst guy is that Matt Hardy. I don't think he got a really good.
I forgot who Matt Hardy's guy is because he wasn't even on the show, was he?
No, he wasn't, but he's going to be on next weekend. He's got this really bad hairdo.
Who is it? Who's this guy?
Josh Gabriel, I think, or Jason Gabriel or something like that.
Or something.
Yeah, Gabriel's his last name, I know that, but he just looked really he didn't his hair just doesn't look right.
With the best hair though is Punk's guy. What's his name?
Yeah, that was a good combination. For some reason, I just like that.
Whatever.
That was funky, and I gotta say, I don't think that lad was that strong a worker in the ring.
Yeah,
but I already love what they're setting up with him and Punk.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna make it, but I thought the way they put him with CM Punk, I thought it just made CM Punk look so much better for some reason.
I agree. I agree with what a lot of people are saying. I love the way they're pushing Punk these days.
Yeah,
I love this promo with the whole, what am I doing here?
Yeah. See, that's what ECW should have been the whole time. This show is exactly what ECW should have been the whole time. Instead of doing all this weird stuff where you're not really, there's really no flow to it. When they were doing ECW.
Yes, and with ECW, what little I watched of it, because as we all know,
yeah, you stopped watching.
I had a boycott of it, but I felt like I'm essentially watching something filmed in the same arena as Raw and SmackDown. That's all I felt. This, I love the different camera angles they have. The close-up camera angle, behind the ropes, but almost level with the ring.
Yeah, on the crane. I thought that was great.
Yeah, it makes it feel like you're watching a different TV show, which I think is also refreshing.
Yeah. But I thought that of all the guys, even more so than Daniel Bryan, I thought that guy Otunga probably has more of a shot at being a bigger star than...
Yeah.
Because, I think if they keep him with R-Truth, as a hype man, where he's just going to do his rap and do do all the dancing in front of him and let him walk towards the ring looking like the way he did, I think that would make him a star. And
I know I'm in the minority, but I dig R-Truth, especially on the stick.
Yeah, as a long term, that guy's the one that I thought would be the one that I would expect him to be a main eventer at some point.
Yeah, I could see him catching on.
I think Daniel Bryan could at some point, but it's going to be harder for him just because they're already burying him. So.
That gimmick is so fucking stupid. Forgive me, but the funny thing is, I thought he cut a really good promo on The Miz.
Yeah.
And he doesn't look at all dull. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe
even his catchphrase was pretty good. I'll either snap you or tap you.
Yes, I love that. And I just love that cocky, nerdy grin he has.
Yeah, and he smiles the whole time. He should be a stand-up comedian for some reason. He should be
totally
stand-up. He's just smiling the whole time. He's got this whole he smiles the whole time. Even when Jericho's talking to him, he's smiling.
Yeah, it looks like the smart-ass nerd grin.
Yeah.
And it's cool. I mean, it's so different than Steve Blackman, who just literally had no personality in there.
Or Lance Storm. I mean, even Lance Storm didn't have the personality.
Yeah, and I think Daniel Bryanson, Danielson Bryant, I think he, I guess it sounds like they're probably serious about him. I mean, they really let him shine in the match with Jericho.
Yeah.
And the thing with Lance Storm, though, he didn't really have as much in-ring charisma as Danielson or someone like Phil LaFon, who also got the boring gimmick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Phil LaFon,
yep.
Whatever happened to him?
He retired, I guess, with the knee injuries.
Oh, yeah, because that All Japan style really killed a lot of guys' careers really fast.
Oh, and Doug Furnas has Parkinson's.
Yeah, oh, man.
Well, I want to give a shout out to Brad Smith of Windsor, Ontario, Canada, who was the person who correctly answered our first trivia question.
Unfortunately, because I really should have asked you not to close off to keep it to the lower 48 states.
That's right.
Oh, he's Canadian?
Brad Smith, we are paying Canadian postage to send Brad Smith the loot. I think he wants some pretty cool stuff, but you know what? He deserves it because he probably did more footwork than just about anybody. I do also have to say, another Slammin' Stan listener by the name of Otis Ball also got the trivia question correct, but he gave his answer a few days after Brad Smith. And the trivia question was, what woman wrestler appeared on the game show Match Game as a contestant in 1975? And the woman who was a contestant and won 1 out of 2 games was a woman who wrestled as Lola Kiss. Lola Kiss was one of Mildred Burke's students in the 1970s when Mildred Burke's gym in Reseda, California was getting a lot of publicity in the Canadian wrestling magazines, Wrestling Monthly and Wrestling Review. About the only thing I could find of Lola Kiss that exists on video is there was a match available on DVD where she wrestles the late Vivian Vachon, and an intergender match against a guy named Juan Velez in Mildred's gym.
Oh, boy.
Yes.
Was this apartment wrestling?
It was very close to apartment wrestling. You know, very soon I want to do a lengthier feature on Mildred Burke's women in the 70s because that was kind of a fascinating phenomenon.
Is this going to be the leading up to the Kurt Brown show?
Yeah, I guess I could do that.
Remember that what we were talking about, Carl Stern?
That's right. I could do a Southern California version of Carl Stern's show because I can talk about this stuff for quite a while, I must say. But no, it was fascinating because I don't know if any listeners out there read the book by Jeff Lean, Queen of the Ring, that was basically a biography of Mildred Burke and covered her career. It was an excellent book that did a really good job of, going over what Mildred Burke was up against and having to deal with Billy Wolfe and, also having to cope with, being a good worker but not a very knowledgeable businesswoman. One of the few things that was wrong with the book was he was rather naive in some aspects. For one thing, obviously he understood that wrestling was a work, but he seemed to think a lot of her matches in the 30s were shoots and would even describe angles in matches that, were very clearly worked by anybody who has ever watched wrestling, but he seemed to think were a shooting situation. Like, they talked about Mildred pinning a woman and then after the 2 count, pulling the woman up to avoid the 3 count so she could punish her more, and the guy seemed to think that that was legitimate. So there's some naivete in it. The other aspect in the book, or the other section of the book where the guy seemed a little either in denial or naive, was Mildred Burke's wrestling school did actually get some of the students work in Japan, did get them some legitimate matches, but it was also mixed in with a lot of straight-to-film matches that were advertised in the magazines. And some of these were like just bikini matches, which were close to apartment house wrestling, but some of them were also just, just titillating matches, man versus woman, topless wrestling, nude wrestling. In fact, Sandy Partlow, who was a wrestling journeywoman in the 70s, wrestled nude in one of these tapes. But that's in a nutshell. I want to do more on Mildred Burke. But the one interesting thing is Jeff Lean seemed to think that these tits and ass matches were somehow, he was trying to rationalize it as Mildred empowering herself by promoting these, and was trying to make it sound that in some strange way she was being a feminist. And
it was weird. He was like, at first he said, the idea that that she do these man versus woman matches and have the woman win. But he was somewhat upfront about it, because then when she started doing the naked matches, he said, that was just pornography.
Oh, okay. I must have forgotten that aspect, because I remember him rationalizing it, but I don't remember him coming out on the table with the nude matches. Yeah, the intergender stuff that he said, he compared it to Billie Jean King and what was her opponent's name?
Bobby Riggs.
Bobby Riggs. I'm sorry. Yeah, he likened it to that one. It was just basically titillating, woman defeating man wrestling. But I'd like to actually research more about Mildred Burke, because the whole 1970s era when she had her school, I think it was a fascinating era. And interestingly, Lean did not have any interviews, it appeared, with any of her students. And I don't know if her students are just totally off the map, if they just disappeared into the woodwork somewhere. But it was amazing how he procured interviews with a lot of people who had been out of sight for quite a while. But the whole 70s connection, he didn't seem to give any first-hand accounts of.
You think you'd find somebody considering it's 1970s?
Yeah. Well, maybe that's what we have to. Yeah, maybe that'll have to be my next research project. Did Titanes in El Ring?
Maybe
now it's the golden era of Mildred Burke.
You'll have to get Dr. Lucha to help you out on that.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Whenever he gets that Conan bio done.
I'm looking forward to that.
Has he done yet, or is he still working on that?
I do not know. Last I heard, he was still working on it.
Yeah. I bet you by that point, Conan's going to retire again. Already.
It could happen. I guess the last thing I'll mention about Mildred Burke's girls, and this was really enjoyable for me, is one woman that I was able to find matches of on YouTube was one of her students whose name was Cheryl Day. She was one of the gals who was frequently featured in the Wrestling Review and Wrestling Monthly magazines. And saw matches of her with Tammy Aoyami and Jaguar Yokota. But as I was searching, I came across a 1980 match with Nancy Kumi and an English heel named Lena Blair. And as they're getting ready to wrestle, I'm looking at the referee, and he looks a little familiar to me. And I rewind a bit, and sure enough, when they introduce the referee Gil Arellano, the proprietor of Gil's Gym, was a referee in Japan Wrestling, All Japan Women.
Wow.
Yeah, I watched the entire match just to get a look of a very young Gil. I was tripping out big time.
Who did you never mention going to Japan?
He had mentioned about going to Japan, but I just figured, maybe it was one of those IWE tours or something like that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I never thought twice about it, and the first thing I did when I saw this on YouTube was I emailed it to Billy Anderson, who trained a lot of his students out of Gil's when he first started teaching. But it was really great to have something of Gil on tape, and actually a young Gil, and he even took a bump for Lena Blair at the end of the match. And on that note, I guess we can move on. But I had to throw out that little trivia there.
Now, I wanted to ask you, have you ever heard Beauregard's album?
I have Beauregard's album.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay.
On CD. It was re-released on CD, I think about 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay, yeah, because I was listening to it lately, and I knew it would be up your alley, and I couldn't remember if you had it.
I remember almost 30 years ago I had a friend who had the LP cover, but that was all that he could find. And the LP cover had, like, the lyrics of the songs, and we were just tripping out the lyrics like, Superstar, Superstar, where have you gone?
What kind of music is it? Like rock or?
It's like sort of vaguely garage rockish.
Oh, like psychedelic type thing?
Yeah.
One of the people who was involved in producing the album was a guy named Greg Sage.
The Wipers.
Yes, the Wipers, indie rocker from the 70s and 80s, who actually produced some really quality music. And at last I heard of Beauregard, I heard he's living in Florida, comfortably retired.
That was his whole name as a wrestler, right?
Beauregard.
Yeah, Beauregard. He was actually, I saw him wrestle Kim Duck on the very first live match I went to, and it was the final match of the night, the blow-off match. And he wasn't a great wrestler, but I thought he was a really good heel. And he was really good at, playing the heel who, is made a bumbling fool of. He'd sell for Gina LaBelle when Gina LaBelle would, catch him slipping up on an interview.
Wow!
Yes, wow! Oh, in fact, I remember what it was. There was going to be a match between Ripper Collins and David Morgan that was Loser Leave Town. Ripper Collins was the heel. And Gene LaBelle was interviewing Beauregard about the match. And Beauregard slipped up and said, Ripper Collins will leave town, when he meant to say David Morgan. And Gene LaBelle just jumps on it, and his eyes go wide, and he says, "Did you hear what you just said, Beauregard?" And Beauregard looks at him, and he starts shaking his head wildly, and he slaps his hands over his ears, going, No, I meant Morgan's going to leave. And it was great. I thought he was so cool because he didn't feel like he had to be a cool heel in any way. If he slipped up, he would make himself look as foolish as he possibly could.
Now, would you say that musically that is probably the finest wrestling-related album or single or EP or anything?
The finest music-related wrestling?
Musically, is it the best of the wrestling albums or whatever? Musically.
Specifically of wrestlers who put out albums or wrestling-related?
I would say wrestlers and the WWF stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Kitane
Sin El Ring, I think, still has the best music. Yeah. That's music that, when you hear a Kitane Sin El Ring song, whether you like it or not, it's so catchy, it's going to be playing through your mind all day. You'll be humming it.
Yes.
There's Scenario Joe. There's Scenario Joe.
Yolanka.
Yolanka, yes. Yolanka the spaceman with his magic pacifying gun.
And his space capsule.
That's right, and I predict someday people will see him as the ultimate highest power, along with Gumby and Pokey. But I do think Beauregard, I thought that was pretty good music, actually. The lyrics were pretty bad. The lyrics were very silly, but...
And his vocals were not... for a wrestler, they were actually not terrible, but... Yeah,
they weren't bad vocals. In fact, they kind of had a charm to them.
Yeah. But, I was thinking though. Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day. That like I guess the wrestling album, the first WWF one, is still a pretty good novelty record.
Yeah, there was some good stuff came out of that one, I thought.
Yeah, I mean,
the only thing I never got was that "Grab Them Cakes" song of Junkyard Dog.
What about?
Well, I mean, all I remember, he'd be going to the ring to Another One Bites the Dust, and that worked so well. That was so awesome. And then you go into slow motion with "Grab Them Cakes." I mean, it went from totally cool to totally retarded.
Yeah, going from Queen to Vicky Sue Robinson is interesting.
Although I love Turn the Beat Around, I will confess.
By the way, you know who wrote the Hulk Hogan theme, the song, the one that became the cartoon theme song that's on that album?
The "I Am a Real American"?
No, the dun 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 dun, the one that became the cartoon theme song.
No, I don't.
Jim Steinman.
Really?
Yes. I don't know why or how, but yeah.
Interesting.
And when you read it, it's like, oh, that makes sense. But
here's a trivia question.
Yeah.
Who did the voice of Hulk Hogan in Hulk Hogan's Rock and Roll Wrestling?
Brad Garrett.
Yes, from Everybody Loves Raymond.
And the other, do you know who the other more famous voice actors on the show were?
No.
Okay. James Avery was Junkyard Dog.
James Avery. I'm blanking.
Yeah. Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince also.
Okay, yes.
On Ninja Turtles.
Uh-huh.
And Jimmy Snuka was, I believe, David Arquette's father. He was some sort of Arquette.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
I don't think there are any other known actors on the show, but still.
Very cool, very cool.
Have you ever seen the cartoon?
The cartoon episode I remember the best was the episode where there was a ride in an amusement park that was like built over the graves of some is built over a graveyard, and so zombies started haunting the people going on this one ride, and Hulk Hogan helped them win back their graveyard or something like that. But I just thought, oh, this is awesome.
And also Bobby Heenan ran the amusement park, didn't he?
I don't remember that. Oh, that's even better. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, there were way too few episodes with the cartoon Bobby Heenan.
Yeah. I love it.
And there's Junkyard Dog's robot, Junkenstein.
I don't remember that. I
have a lot of them.
I haven't seen that in years.
Actually, yeah, you sent me some of those episodes. I'll have to give those a...
Yeah,
yes, you did. I will have to sit down and watch those. You sent me some really cool stuff.
I'm trying to remember, did I also send you the Giant Baba anime movie?
Yes, you did, which I have not watched yet. Okay. The first thing I watched, of course, was a lot of that Mid-South footage that you obtained. That was bitchin'.
The Mid-South, yeah, the 2-inch stuff.
And, of course, the Memphis. And I was so jazzed that there was the DVD that had Jimmy Hart singing "We Hate School." That song was what made me just totally love Jimmy Hart when I first got into Memphis wrestling.
I want to hear the Terry Funk recording of that song.
I would love to hear that too.
Yeah.
Where was that produced?
Japan. It was like Jimmy Hart gave him some existing songs, or maybe some new ones too, for an album he cut in Japan. And one of them was "We Hate School." And
it's on Figure 4 on the Figure 4 board.
Someone posted the Terry Funk "We Hate School"?
Yeah, I got it off of that.
Okay, you have to send me that.
Yeah.
Or send me the link to the, because I don't subscribe, but send me the link to the download or whatever.
Yeah, they split it into like 4 different, into I think 8 different files.
Into individual MP3s or WAR files. Okay, but send me the links then.
Yeah, I'll look for it.
Yeah, I have to hear that.
Yeah.
We hate school.
We
hate school.
And I love the opening line. My teacher don't like my music and she don't like my clothes, so I said, "Up your nose with a rubber hose." I loved it. I thought Jimmy Hart is awesome.
Kurt, we got another caller 2 minutes before the show starts.
Oh, who could it be now?
I thought I'd just drop by and say hello.
I was hoping for Jose Fernandez.
Dr. Lucha calling in 2 minutes.
Man, we're
in fact, you
so
called
often.
just as I was about to state, just as I was about to say, the first time I ever saw Johnny Legend, and I did not know who he was at the time, I was immediately jealous of him because he was wearing a Jimmy Hart We Hate School t-shirt. And I want one to this day. Dr. Lucha, how are you?
That I don't have. The rubber hose I can get.
Did you stick it up your nose?
Well, no, I have a mass wrestler friend come next October will be aiming it to stick it up the nose.
Oh, dear. I thought if you're bringing up rubber hoses, we could bring up Chris Colt again or something, yeah?
No.
Oh, no.
Well, the first thing I want to say to you, Dr. Lucha, is I want to apologize because I didn't realize how many times I talked over you when we were on Figure 4 last week.
I must say I was so excited after the show was over because you sounded like the energetic, Viva la Lucha spouting Vandal that we knew from before health. The health.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, thank you very much. Well, I must say in fact, I would like to say I am at the 1 year mark of remission.
Oh.
And I am feeling really, really good.
Awesome.
Went for a 1 hour run last night. It was even cool. It even started raining on me as I was running. It was like, and all I kept thinking was, God, man, it's awesome to be healthy again. It feels really, really good just to be in good health again. And actually, all you three cats I have to thank for so many different reasons of just kind of being so cool while I was sick. Bix sent me tons of cool DVDs to watch while I had nothing to do but sit around at home being bald-headed. Fredo totally helped me redo my blog because I needed something like that to focus on when I was sick. And Steve Sims, working on the Titanes and El Ring story for the Wrestling Observer, totally kept me focused and kept my spirits going, too.
You were dealing with health issues, and I was stuck in a jury room for over 2 months.
That's right. That sounds like a good subject of a one-act play, actually, doesn't it?
And this is what we did with our spare time.
That's right. I'm sorry, what were you saying, Fredo?
Kurt, you weren't really bald the whole time, you know.
No, I wasn't. I remember the hair started falling out, and it was still very long. It was below my shoulders.
Yeah.
And part of me was thinking, well, maybe I'll just keep it. But the more it started falling out, the more I said, okay, this is just looking sad. I look like I have long but very thinned out hair. I look like I'm trying to convince myself I have long hair. So one night, Elena just said, shall we? And Elena was my personal barber and just shaved it down. And for the first time since I was an infant, I got to see what my head looked like.
It was only for two months, wasn't it?
I kept it bald, let's see,
So they did
about 4 months maybe.
4 months, yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
how long
4
was
months.
the chemo for?
What's that?
How long was the chemo for?
The chemo was for 7 months.
Yeah.
The funny part is during the chemo, the hair would still grow. Like after I shaved it, the hair would grow, but all I had to do was give it a little yank and it would fall out like that.
Wow.
Ouch.
So it's short now, but the curls are still there, and I'm just trying to decide what to do with it now. I've been getting it cut on a regular basis.
I have a simple question. The picture on the standtheembryo.com site of the legendary Broadway Danny Wolf being Fireman Carey, how recent is that picture?
When was that, Fredo? That was like a couple of months ago.
No, that was in January.
Just last month?
January wasn't December, I think.
You know
December,
what?
You're right. Yeah.
And then I'll pass the mic. But the first thing I saw knowing your background, Kurt, the first thing I saw when I saw that picture, the first thing I thought was, my God, Kurt works for the County of Orange, and he's gone Orange County. He's gone Orange County conservative. Look at that haircut.
Oh, my haircut could be conservative as can be, but The older I get, the lefter I'm getting. Everybody kept telling me, as you grow older, you'll become more conservative, and it didn't happen. I'm getting lefter and lefter all the time.
You know, speaking of haircuts, you know, I finally figured out what hair you should actually let your hair grow looking like.
Ooh, give me some ideas, because I really am trying to find some sort of, like...
You just saw him on Tuesday. Darren Young, that guy who was with CM Punk.
Oh.
I think that's...
I wonder if I could pull that off.
I think you could pull that off.
No, you could not.
I think
I don't quite have that man's physique. I probably wouldn't quite... Although I say it looks cool on him.
Kurt, you can have that physique, too.
Let's see. Where's the nearest pharmaceutical?
Did any of you guys see Herschel Walker on UFC?
No.
No, I didn't.
Or even pictures, because Herschel Walker and Kurt are virtually the same age.
That's true. We are, aren't we?
And if he can get that physique.
That's true.
Well, Steve, you're the one who's closest to the Tijuana border. Could he make a pharmacy run for me?
Absolutely.
And in 3 weeks, I'll report back to everybody and say, wouldn't John Strongman be proud of me?
John Strongman's natural.
Yeah, what am I saying? He is natural.
Come on.
He's got that Pamela Anderson cleavage naturally. That's why. He's a member of the Anderson family.
Is it just my TV, or is the Undertaker really orange?
It was something from the Burns.
It was the Burn?
It was either from the Burns or Burn Cream or something.
Yeah, because he looked really orange on my
he had like what? Splotches. Yeah, the orange splotches.
Yeah, that's not good. My dad, who was a doctor, always said burns are the worst injuries.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, it's frightful pain, and there's no escape from it.
Now, I read in the Observer that they think it's about the same critical point as like a bad sunburn. Has anybody heard anything?
That's what WWE's claiming. I don't know. I mean,
wow.
You can have a second-degree sunburn, so I mean, if they said it was first and second degree, so in that sense, it wasn't that far off, but yeah, I mean, you can tell it was worse. I mean, it melted his hat and part of his coat and stuff.
Wow. Now, when you said he looked orange, did it just look like in certain areas he looked orange, or did he look orange overall?
Well, the lower part of his face looked orange.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought maybe he was morphing into Pokey now.
Well, I didn't see the rest of him. I mean, I just noticed that on his face.
Yeah, see, if I was booking something psychedelic, I would have somebody slowly morph into Pokey the Horsey. And then another wrestler who is probably his nemesis.
Pokey the cow horse?
Pokey the cow horse. That's it. Oh, awesome. And then somebody would have to morph into Gumby to be his running mate.
They could be with the rest.
Oh, and what, they face off against Davey and Goliath?
There you go. Oh, that would be bitchin'. Art Clokey would be smiling from above. Art Clokey would insist that Davey and Goliath job to Gumby and Pokey.
By the way, I was going to mention that photo of you and Danny Wolf, because it's kind of scary how he has not aged in the past 20, 22 years.
It is so true. That guy, there's like a picture of Dorian Gray somewhere in his apartment, I'm convinced.
Because he does not look 22, whatever it is, like he's almost 22 years older than he does on those Memphis tapes.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who's, I believe, is pretty fanatic about his health. He doesn't eat red meat. I remember I used to love going to Cauliflower Alley when it was in Studio City. I loved going to the banquet. My favorite part of the banquet is they would always accidentally serve Danny red meat. And he would just, he would be so pissed off. and he'd just complain about it until one of us would finally bring the dish back and say, hey, could you get us some chicken or something, man? Speaking of Danny Wolf, I'm going to be heading up to San Francisco with him for the March 6th roller derby, the San Francisco Bay Bombers.
What's the venue?
The Kezar Pavilion.
Really?
Yes. The Northern California equivalent of the Olympic Auditorium. Well, I guess that would be Cow Palace actually, but
Kezar
Pavilion Kezar Pavilion is where all the classic roller derby games were skated. So it's right, and Danny told me it's right by Haight-Ashbury, which is a place I love to shop. So
it has kind of run down this decade.
Really, has it?
The area. Not necessarily. I haven't been in the arena, but the area has.
The area, but they still have those cool psychedelic shops?
No, not as much as it used to be because it was real inexpensive housing. It's now become mostly Hispanic, I think.
Oh, but that's supposed to mean Steve. Come on.
I mean, San Francisco, Big C. We have an expression in Southern California that there are two types of Californians. There are people from Northern California, and then there's normal people.
Yeah.
So you go to San Francisco, and you always have an adventure.
You know, Kurt.
That's right.
Oh, well, yeah, after that, well, especially now after all the publicity about the bus fights and everything.
Oh.
Within Oakland. You guys see that?
I didn't see that, actually. But Oakland is a war ground these days.
Yeah.
It is. Every other year I go to see UCLA play Berkeley at Cal Stadium up there.
Now, Berkeley, there's the city.
Each year, Oakland and even the out areas around Berkeley that's not around the campus have gotten a little worse, and a little worse, and a little worse, and they weren't good to begin with.
Oh, interesting. Now I'm even more curious. Okay, this is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, all the growth and money growth, and I think a lot of the cultural expansion population has been Santa Clara County, South San Mateo County. Areas like San Jose and Palo Alto in that area are just booming, and those areas look like what I first remember Oakland and Berkeley looking like, many years ago.
Yeah, my first memory of Berkeley was my brother Sid went to school there in the early 70s, and I remember going through all the shops, and we went to a bookstore, and I saw all these really groovy-looking comic books, and I said, "Oh, Mom, I want to buy all these comics," and she just grabbed me by the shoulder, turned me around, and pushed me out the door, gently, I might add. But she said, "Kurt, I don't think you look very closely at those comics."
Oh, no.
Why, what's wrong with them? They look like those cool old cartoons from the 1920s and 30s, Mom. And she said, but they had names like Big Ass and Dope Comics, and I wish he hadn't have noticed that. I could have discovered the fabulous Furry Freak Brothers and Robert Crumb at a much earlier age than I actually did.
But this is a Lucha Libre podcast, right? Technically, or a wrestling podcast.
This is part of
what joy it was the first time you, Kurt, referred me to something that I hadn't seen back in Chicago, Love and Rockets.
Yes, something anybody into Lucha Libre should check out. I
had not heard of it in the late 80s when you brought that up.
Really? That was the first you ever heard of it,
one of the Viva La Lucha articles.
The band Love and Rockets?
No, Love and Rockets. That's what I'm thinking. The band.
No, the cartoon.
Which actually came before the band.
Years before the band.
Yes. There was a comic, a graphic novel, or comic.
Daniel Hernandez, is that the guy?
Gilbert and Jamie Hernandez.
Gilbert and Jamie, that's it.
Yes. They grew up here in Southern California, were huge wrestling fans, and...
Well, they were huge Lucha Libre fans.
Yeah, they were. Well, actually, they were both Lucha Libre and SoCal wrestling fans.
Yeah,
they remembered, the old Channel 13 matches, and they dug the whole phenomenon of women's wrestling in Mexico. They even had an ongoing character, Reina Titañón, that was one of Jamie's characters, and they had a number of just Lucha Libre oriented storylines, and. I've actually gotten to know Gilbert and his wife Carol, who are really, really just awesome, really down-to-earth people. And not just saying this because I know them, but these comics are
no, I don't think you're understating it at all. In fact, when I first did some little investigation about it, people says, "Oh yeah, this is like the underground. This is like the top of the shelf stuff."
Yeah, these are really awesome stories. In fact, if
Odessa were only here.
Yes, if anybody who listens to this wants to jump in and get a Hernandez comic, the one I recommend right off the bat is Gilbert Hernandez's comic that's called Chelo's Burden, which is an awesome story. I don't think there's any lucha libre in it, but it's a graphic novel that is just an incredible story from start to finish.
I think Odessa's going to try to call right now.
Oh, no, I communicated with him. I chatted with him earlier today, and he is stuck at work.
Yeah.
Oh, bummer. Yeah, he phoned in once. We'd love to hear from him again sometime if he.
The last time we did a show, he told me he tried calling in, but I think he called in like right before the show is actually going to end.
Oh.
So I think they take you off they take off the phone lines.
Yeah. You can't wait till 7:59. I think.
Yeah. I mean, at least Steve called like 3 minutes before the.
You know what I like about your late call, Steve, is it reminds me of the last 10 minutes of Lucha Libre on Channel 34 when I was growing up, because that was always when the main event happened, and that's when either the heel or the babyface would do a heroic run-in every week, predictably. It was awesome.
We should have.
Mine isn't heroic. I'm just trying to follow Bixie out.
You know what we should have done when Dr. Lucha called? We should have said, "We're running out of time."
That's right.
and just let
We gotta go.
Yeah, just let Steve talk as we're running out of time, and just have Steve talk through the end of the show.
That would be awesome. That would be great. Just let him carry it away. Just totally carry it away. In fact, I have seen there's video footage of LA shows from the Olympic Auditorium in the late 70s, but there's no footage that I know of where Chavo Guerrero would get bloodied up in the last 10 minutes of the Lucha Libre show, and it was great. Miguel Alonso would run in the ring and hold Chavo in his arms and pull out his handkerchief and start dabbing the blood and screaming, "Chavo, Chavo, Chavo!" And then he would look at like Gordon and Goliath and shake his head and go like, "Cobardes." I'd give anything to get tape of that.
I think the stuff that Ryan let us borrow has some of that.
Oh, does it really? Oh, that's bitchin'. In fact, it wasn't just Chavo. Whoever was the babyface, reliably toward the end of the show, every couple of weeks, some babyface would get bloodied up, and Miguel Alonso was like the cavalry sergeant who was holding him in his arms as he's dying.
Yeah, because I noticed Miguel Alonso was on towards the end.
Miguel was a classic.
So, yeah.
Well, I think it's time to wrap this baby.
Wait, you gotta bring up the sumo story.
Oh, that's right.
Otherwise, I'll never.
I was totally bummed. People who know me know that on and off since 1995, I have been quite the sumo fan, and I probably watched it when they had the greatest array of stars in 1995. They had the brothers Takanahana and Wakanahana, who both became Yokozunas, and probably were two of the best sumos I had seen. Then there were the Americans Musashi Maru and I'm blanking. Akabono. How could I forget Akabono? In fact, it's so strange seeing Akabono.
I was going to say Akabono just jokingly.
But you were right. I mean, Akabono was a Yokozuna, and it's so strange seeing him in his post-sumo career. And I began watching again about 4 years ago, and there was only one top dog at that time, and that was a Mongolian wrestler, Asashoryu, who I can only describe as the Ric Flair of sumo. Asashoryu was flamboyant as far as sumo standards go. When you're a sumo, you can't do any histrionics. If you get soundly defeated, you can't raise a fuss. You can't raise a stink. You can't, do like one of the tennis players, like Jimmy Connors would do. You have to just stay gentlemanly. You have to be even-keeled with your emotions, whether you win or lose. And Asashoryu, there's no comparing the two, by the way. Asashoryu is probably one of the greatest sumos the sumo world has seen. And one of the things I loved about him, when he would go for the final stare down, walk from the corner to the final stare down, he'd just do this, just barely a strut, almost unnoticeable to the untrained eye. And when I mean untrained eye, I just mean somebody who never watches sumo probably wouldn't notice he's doing anything unusual. But if you're a sumo fan, the guy had a strut to him. And I'm terrible at memorizing records or how many straight tournaments he won, but if I recall, I think he broke the record of straight tournaments, won consecutively. But he also had a reputation as a bad boy. Some of it deserved, some of it not so much deserved. There was what I felt was just a lot of nationalist feelings. They weren't too keen that somebody who wasn't Japanese was totally dominating the sport. And there were accusations of fixing matches and whatnot.
No.
Yeah, I know. Not in a noble sport like sumo. My God.
I didn't think so.
Next thing you're going to say wrestling has worked.
Wrestling is work, not lucha libre.
Yeah. That's right. Lucha libre is all real. It always has been. But he also asked for trouble. There's a lot, when you're a sumo, there's a lot of things that you agree to live a lifestyle that, out in public, you behave yourself, you dress in your sumo garb, and he would, disobey a lot of these rules, and there would be suspensions and such. But finally he got into a bar fight, which is a major no-no for sumos. Rules have relaxed over the years and such. There was a time where if there was a sumo wrestler who was getting a divorce, it was considered a scandal and could even be a means for being dismissed. If you just, misbehaved, they could dismiss you. And I'm certain they resisted totally just trouncing Asashoryu from the sport. But when you get into an all-out bar fight, I know, we hear stuff about pro wrestlers. That's kind of just an everyday thing we hear. That's a misdemeanor in pro wrestling, but it's quite the felony in sumo. And so Asashoryu voluntarily retired in the last few weeks. And the only reason I don't follow sumo on a regular basis is because I have to subscribe to a channel called TV Japan, which is a whopping $25 per month. So maybe every couple of years I'll buy the channel for half a year and enjoy the sport. And I'll probably be doing that soon again, but there's going to be quite the void now that Asashoryu has retired pretty much for the good of the sport and knowing he'd probably be suspended. But the other thing that's interesting is he has several wrestlers in the pro wrestling business in Japan. I'm so out of it. I think one of them is called Blue Wolf, if I remember right.
Yeah, Blue Wolf and his brother, whose name I forget.
So a lot of times, sumos who make their transition to professional wrestling don't do a good job of it. For every Tenryu, there's a number of...
Wajima,
the guy who fought Tom McGee in one of the worst matches I've seen in my life.
Oh, that
remember that?
Horrid.
Oh, my God, I can't... Oh, that was like... I think that's the all-time worst match I've ever seen. But,
that's a good bad match, though.
It is. I would watch it again just to say, let's watch this absolutely horrible match and enjoy it. But Asashoryu, somebody, I have a notion if he wanted to make the transition...
I'm guessing he's going to do that at some point.
Yeah, I wouldn't begrudge him if he did. I hope he'd be successful. He was... Yeah, he was
successful in the Tenryu sense or successful in the Koji Kitao sense?
Well, I guess that all depends on attitude.
Yeah.
He is a bit of a rebel, so I hope he wouldn't pull a Koji Kitao which was an absolute disaster. Yeah, I think Tenryu is probably the best testament to a sumo who made the transition. I mean, I know everybody else would say Rikidōsen, but...
I mean, I'm looking this up now, he's only 30.
Too, right?
I'm sorry?
Akira Taue was a sumo too, right?
I believe so, yes.
I thought it was a baseball player.
No, Baba was.
Baba was a baseball player.
That's right. No, we're thinking of
Baba
Vince
wasn't
Combs.
a baseball player. Come on. No way he was a baseball player with that body.
He was a pitcher.
In 2 weeks, Kurt, I'm going over to Phoenix in spring training, and one of the games will be the Giants, and maybe I can get to see Lincecum.
Oh, if you could get, oh man, if you could score Lincecum's autograph, I would be so jazzed. But if you can't,
Kurt, stop saying those things about me. Sign Lincecum.
But they're in great. It's in praise, man. He's awesome. He's going to actually make me start watching baseball now. I won't know what's going on. I'll say the guy lugs the ball and the guy swings at it with a stick, and a guy with a glove on his left hand is chasing it now.
So you'll be okay with our baseball preview next week?
Definitely. And I'll pretend like I understand what's going on even.
Well, listen to Vince Scully, and it'll be a lot easier. Yeah,
Vince Scully, quite the testament. And he probably could say Lincecum's name right, too. And on that note, let's wind it down. Thank all of you for phoning in. Los Cuatros Rudos, Alfredo Esparza, Vandal Drummond, Dr. Lucha Steve Sims, and the Bixie Demon Dave Bixenspan. Thank you guys again for calling. I had a blast tonight.
Same here.
And remember, if you're walking through Southern California in the night and you see a bright light shooting across the sky, it is not a shooting star. It is a heavenly handful of Montsel's powder. Rock on. Till next week, my friends.
Good night.